I could never go through what they've gone through. Well, of course they couldn't. They don't have Jesus. And so they come to you and say, you know, you've got something I don't have. I could have never gone through, I could have never handled that like you did. One of your greatest opportunities to witness for the Lord is when you're going through the deep water, when you're going through the crisis of life, and He's there with you, and you know that no matter how you're buffeted, you're going to come out all right. That's what people need today. That's what they want, because everybody has troubles. Some run to psychiatrists, some run to psychologists, some run here, some run to looking for help. Jesus said, I'm with you. All right, that's the first thing you need to remember when you're going through the hard place. Second thing, turn to the book of Job, chapter 1. Talk about troubles. Oh, man, I wish that clock would run backwards for 15 minutes. First chapter of Job is an interesting chapter in the Word. I'm not going to bore you with all the details. You read it when you get home. But let me tell you the circumstances. Job has buried 10 children in one day. 3 daughters and 7 sons. One day. Have you ever lost a child? Boy, talk about heartache. I stood at the grave of my child, days old. I had a 9-year-old daughter pulling on my hand and said, Daddy, why did God take my little sister? I didn't have answers. I can't even imagine. My mind can't go that far to lose 10 children in one day. We'd call it a tornado today. Hit the house where they were having a party and took them all. In those days, wealth was not measured so much by dollars and cents as possessions. He lost all of his flocks, he lost all of his herds in one day. Talk about heartache. All this bad news reaches Job, and I think the 22nd verse in the first chapter is an important verse for all of us. When you're going through the crisis, you got to remember this. Doesn't care what your crisis is, what your heartache is, what it is that's putting the squeeze on your heart. In all this, underline the word in all this. In all of his heartache, in all of his sorrow, in all that had gone wrong, Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. It's all right. There's nothing wrong with expressing your heart. I've done it many times and saying, I sure don't understand this. It's even all right to say, I don't know why God allowed this to happen. Because you see, when you're His child, nothing can just happen to you. Really. He watches over you. He takes care of you. That was the challenge that the devil made to God. Oh, you've built a hedge around Job. Let the hedge down and see. Just let me get at him and see if he'll still love you. And the devil bets on that. I'm using modern day language to get through to you. The devil counts on the fact that if God will allow him to get at you, and he studies the best way to get at you, that you'll turn against God. He counts on it. Unfortunately, he's right in a lot of cases. But God knew Job's heart. Because God had said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? There's none like him in all the earth. He loves me and he doesn't want anything to do with you. He eschews evil. Oh, well, tear down the fence and let me get at him. And God had so much confidence in Job. He said, go ahead, but you can't take his life. That's the limit. Oh, I don't believe that. Well, then take some scissors and cut the first chapter out of your Bible. Keep doing that with what you don't believe, and pretty soon you'll just have the cover. It says Holy Bible on one side and nothing on the other. So Satan went to work. And now Job sits on the earth. I didn't read the preceding verses. And what does he do? God, I don't think this is fair what you've done. I don't think this is fair what you've allowed to happen. Lord, after all the way I've served you and all I've done for you, blah, 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 blah. No. What does it say? Nobody's looking at their Bible? What does it say? What did Job do?
He didn't sin or blame God.
Oh, he didn't blame God. He didn't charge God foolishly. See, that's sin. There's people in here today that'll never rob a bank, never get drunk, never be junkies, drug addicts. But if you charge God foolishly, do you know that's a sin? If you question his being God and you're his servant, if you doubt the way God's working, if you find fault with it, all because it's inconvenient or it hurts your feelings, that's sin, because he's God. Don't ask me. Sometimes people come to me, can you explain this, what's going on? No, I can't. But I know one thing, you've got to keep serving God. You can't sit and find fault with God, and you can't second guess God, and you can't say, why in the world would a God, the world's full of that. Well, how could a God of love allow that hurricane to strike? That's a choice that men have made. Love him. Trust him. Job did. It finally got to the place, and I don't have time to deal with it this morning, where even his wife said to him, Job, why are you preserving your integrity, your relationship with God? Why don't you just curse God and die? I don't know. Maybe she took out a big insurance policy on him or something. Who knows? But she was looking at it differently than him. She suffered the loss of 10 children and all that they had too. She was part of it. But she had a different way of looking at it. Apparently she was fed up. Why don't you just curse God and die? Let's get this whole mess over with. Here's the reply. What? Should I just serve God when he does good things? He's still God. The Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And he said, though God try me, and even if he slays me, yet will I trust him. Whew. Follow the book. Job comes out triumphant, victorious. Why? Because he didn't look up and blame God and take God foolishly. Number one, remember he's with you. Don't think it's strange what's happened to you. Your faith is on trial. Either you have faith or you've been deceived and kidding yourself. If you say, I'm going to trust God, I lose my job, I'm still going to trust God, and I'm going to just keep right on serving him and loving him, and then you don't do it, you've wiped out all that you said. Means nothing. Just talk. But if you said, I'm going to trust God if I lose my job, I'm just going to trust him, and you keep serving him, and you keep loving him, and you keep being a shining light for him, you've added all kind of authenticity to your testimony, not only in the sight of men, but more especially in the sight of God. I'd like to go on. I could treat this subject till midnight tonight. Oh, Pastor, don't worry, relax. Cater's just finishing up downstairs. But listen, you're going to have a crisis. Get that settled in your mind. Peter said, don't think it's strange. God hasn't singled you out. All of his children are going through it today. Maybe a little different, but everybody's hurting. Everybody's being pushed. Secondly, When you go through it, remember, in the deep water, in the fire, in the hurt, he's there with you. Learn to know him better. Now let me say this, and I'm going to close. Here's a young couple that aren't married yet, but they're madly in love with each other. You know, it's that thing where, oh, I can't live you, honey. Without you, honey, I can't, and all that. And they sit in church and they hold hands and they put their arms around, and you know. Really, that's untested, unproven love. I resent that. Go ahead and resent it. I'm telling you the truth. It's never been put to the test. Over on this side, I'm not going to look at anybody, is a couple that have been married for 20 or 30 years. Hang on. She's known the agony of childbirth to bring their children into this world. They've taken turns sitting up with 6 children at nighttime. They've struggled to pay their bills. Are you with me? They've found out that life isn't always sunshine and roses. Sometimes the trials have been terribly severe, but they're still wildly in love with each other. Now, which love would you rather bank on? That couple that for all these years has been tested and tried and buffeted, and more than once he's come home and said, I got laid off today, the factory closed down. Got to go look for another job. Oh, man, and we were just getting ready to get rid of that clunker of a car and buy a new one, and now this. Or this young couple over here that at the end of the day, she'll go home to her mom and dad, and he'll go home to his. See you tomorrow night, honey. I can hardly wait. Which love would you put the most confidence in at this point? Please don't go home and say, he thinks that's not real. Sure, it's real, but it's untested. Hasn't been tried. This couple over here, their love has been put to every imaginable test and comes through with flying colors. Oh, well, they've even had some arguments, maybe sometimes pretty nasty, but love triumphed over that. This couple here hasn't spoken to each other for a week because they disagreed over whether they should have ketchup or mustard on their hot dogs. Oh, Pastor, people argue over silly things. Well, my money's on this couple over here. Well, I love these people, but it's untested, unproven. You get the point? Don't think it's strange concerning the fiery trial that's come to try you. Father, thank you for your word. You're preparing us for things that lie ahead in our lives, in our nation, and in our world. You have the vantage point of eternity. You see where we don't see. You see around the corners that we can't see. You see through the darkness that we can't comprehend. You see it all. And so you work today in us